Okay, so now we've got our server running, we can now go into the code and just start looking at things and just have a little play around with it all. So open up this porno.exe again, and this time we're not going to do a new script, and this time we're going to open up our old script that we made in the last video. Mine is called PCN. From here, where it says endif on line 31, I want you to go to that line, make a few spaces, and then just do 2 forward slashes, and it should turn green. And what this means is it means you're writing a comment on the script. And comments aren't programming languages. Comments are just English or whatever language you are, and it's just comments about the script, meant for yourself and for other programmers who are going to write with you on your scripts. So here we're just going to break it off, because none of that really matters right now. You just ignore all that stuff. We can just start from here. You notice everything here has a certain format, so it's public, then a name, and then curly brace, these brackets, and then these curly braces with a load of stuff in the middle. The terminology for these are callbacks. So what you can actually do is go onto Google and search samp wiki callbacks, and you're going to get a list of all the callbacks that exist on samp. So here, the callback on player spawn, so these are the names of each callback. If we look at on player spawn, and then go back to here, on player spawn, this gives you a description of what the callback is all about. So this callback is called when a player spawns. So that means when a player spawns onto the server, the code within here is run. A difference between all the callbacks are the number of parameters that they pass through, and these are the variables that you can use within the callback to do different things. So for example, for on player spawn, the only variable you're given is player ID. So this is the ID of the player. So when you come to write your code, you can say and this is the player that spawned, and it's their player ID. So if you've got 60 players on the server and another player joins, they're going to come in as player ID 61. So that's what this variable is equal to. And then you can say stuff like send player ID a message saying welcome to the server. And the way you actually write that is, so what this will do is every time a player spawns, it's going to run this bit of code. It's going to give us the player ID of whichever player spawned, and then we can use that here. And so we're taking the player ID from here and just using that there. You don't need to know too much about the syntax of how this is working here. All you need to know is that we're using the player ID, which is passed through the callback. We're using it in our code to send the player a message which has just spawned. This callback on player def is passing through 3 different variables. One's player ID, one's killer ID, and one's the reason. The player ID is the players that died. The player ID is the dead player. The killer ID is the player that's killed them, and the reason is the way that they died. So if we go back to the samp wiki, and this one's really useful actually to go onto the samp wiki for. So these are the parameters that pass through: the ID, the player that just died; the ID, the killer, or invalid player ID if there is no killer. And the reason variable is actually a number which equates to the reason. So if the player is killed by a 9mm, the ID is going to be number 22. So you can say if reason equals 22, we know the player ID was killed by killer ID with a 9mm. Okay, so that's how you can use that sort of stuff and have a play with that. And this obviously is called every time someone's dead. And yeah, there's a lot more, so I suggest you just go to the wiki page, find the ones that look interesting and look useful to you, and familiarise yourself with this part of the script. Again, just come up to this end if here, just cut this bit off, so you don't need to worry about that just yet. We'll worry about that in the next video. Just get to understanding as much as you can from down here. And another thing I'll say is you can delete these, so if you see a load that you don't want to use, just delete them. And also one more thing, this onPlayed command text you can just ignore completely, because we're using other methods for using commands in the next video. So